Imagine being told you're not good enough to even step inside a place, just because of the color of your skin. A place where people are free to laugh, dance, and live their best lives, but you're left outside, rejected. Now imagine that same place, once out of your reach, becomes yours. The doors that once closed in your face swing wide open, and you're no longer the one waiting to get in. You're the one holding the keys. This is the story of a man who turned rejection into power and a dream into reality. A story of perseverance, pride, and the sweet taste of victory against the odds. Marcus walked toward the glowing lights of the exclusive club, his mind buzzing with excitement. Dressed in a sharp suit, his shoes polished to perfection, he felt confident. Tonight was meant to be the night he would let loose and have some fun, just like anyone else. As he approached the entrance, the bouncer, a tall man with a stern expression, took one look at him, then looked him up and down. Without a word, the bouncer shook his head. "Sorry, not tonight," he said flatly. Marcus stood frozen for a moment, processing what just happened. The rejection stung. He had the looks, the style, the presence. He was dressed better than most who were getting in, but still, he was turned away without a second thought. He glanced around. People, some even less dressed up than him, were being allowed in without any hesitation. The confusion grew inside him, mixing with frustration. As he turned to walk away, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real reason for the rejection had nothing to do with his clothes and everything to do with the color of his skin. The frustration surged, and the sting of humiliation followed him as he disappeared into the night, his mind racing with thoughts of why, of what could have been. As Marcus walked away from the club, the cool night air did nothing to calm the fire that burned inside him. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides, his mind racing with confusion and anger. The rejection didn't just sting, it cut deep, a wound he couldn't ignore. Why had he been turned away? Was it really because of his suit, his style, his demeanor? No. Deep down, he knew the truth. It wasn't about any of that. It was about the color of his skin. He could feel the weight of the injustice pressing down on him. He'd been made to feel like he didn't belong, like he wasn't worthy of the same opportunities as everyone else. But instead of sinking deeper into self-doubt, Marcus felt something else rising within him, a quiet, seething determination. He stopped in his tracks and took a deep breath. He was done being angry. It was time for action. In that moment, something shifted in Marcus. He knew he couldn't let this defeat him. No, he wouldn't just move on and forget about it. He would make them regret ever turning him away. He would show them what it really meant to be judged, not for his skin, but for the power of his will. "I'll buy that damn club," Marcus muttered under his breath, as if the words alone could give him the power he needed. It wasn't a dream anymore. It was a goal that would define him, a goal that would prove to the world that rejection didn't have to mean the end. This wasn't just about owning a club. It was about sending a message, about showing that no one, no matter who they were or where they came from, could be kept out of a place that was meant for everyone. The years that followed weren't easy for Marcus. Every morning, he woke up with a fire in his belly, determined to turn his dreams into reality. He threw himself into work, spending hours learning everything he could about business. He wasn't just working for the sake of working, he was working with a purpose, a goal that burned in the back of his mind every single day. He attended seminars, networked with successful business owners, and built relationships that would help him grow. His nights were filled with research, reading, and planning. Slowly, things began to fall into place. He started his own business, a small venture at first, but it grew steadily. Every step he took, every success he achieved, brought him closer to his goal. With each accomplishment, Marcus gained more confidence. His financial situation improved, and he found himself surrounded by a network of people who respected him not just for his business acumen, but for his character. He began to see the fruits of his labor, but he also knew there was more work to be done. But the road wasn't without its challenges. As his business grew, So did the obstacles. He faced constant setbacks, delayed projects, failed investments, and missed opportunities. But it wasn't just the business world that was tough. Marcus also faced racial discrimination in his professional life. Some investors hesitated to back him, unsure of his abilities because of the color of his skin. Others doubted him, assuming his success was due to luck, not hard work. But Marcus didn't let any of this stop him. He had already been through worse. He knew what it felt like to be judged by something beyond his control. This time, it only fueled him. Each rejection, each barrier, was just another reminder of why he was doing this. With grit and perseverance, he kept pushing forward. And with every struggle, he became more determined. He kept his eye on the prize, the club that had once turned him away. Nothing was going to stop him now. Years had passed, and Marcus was no longer the man who walked away from the club in frustration. He was now a successful businessman, his hard work and sacrifices paying off. His name was well known in the industry, and his bank account reflected the countless hours he'd spent building his empire. He had done what he set out to do. He'd worked his way up, and now he had the resources to make his boldest move yet. One day, Marcus stood outside the very same club that had once rejected him. The lights that had once felt so far out of reach now seemed to call to him. He knew it was time to act. He walked inside, confident and composed, and made his way to the office of the club's owners. They greeted him with a mix of surprise and curiosity. They had heard of Marcus's success, but nothing could have prepared them for the offer he was about to make. "I'm here to buy your club," Marcus said, his voice steady, his eyes unwavering. The owners looked at each other, then back at Marcus. They thought it was a joke at first. But Marcus wasn't joking. He laid out his proposal, an offer they couldn't refuse. The price was right, and the business deal was sound. After some negotiation, they agreed. Just like that, Marcus became the proud owner of the very club that had once turned him away. The dream he'd held onto for so long had become a reality. The news spread like wildfire. Headlines flashed across newsstands and social media platforms. Marcus, a black man, now owns the club that once rejected him. The world was stunned. It was a story that seemed too powerful, too unbelievable to be true, but it was real. A man who had faced rejection because of the color of his skin had now risen to a place of power, owning the club that had once closed its doors to him. The story didn't just inspire Marcus. It inspired millions. People who had once felt powerless in the face of discrimination saw his journey as proof that change was possible. That no matter where you start or what doors are closed in your face, if you keep pushing forward, success can be yours. Marcus had gone from being the man on the outside, looking in, to the one in control, and that wasn't just a victory for him. It was a victory for everyone who had ever been told they weren't good enough. The night had finally arrived. The grand reopening of the club, Marcus's club, was about to begin. As he walked toward the entrance, the familiar neon lights seemed to shine brighter than ever before. This wasn't just any night. This was the moment he had been working toward for years. The night when the world would see his dream come to life. As he approached the door, Marcus couldn't help but glance at the bouncers standing guard. He recognized them instantly. The same men who had turned him away all those years ago tonight. However, they were standing on the other side of the door, watching him. There was no hesitation, no judgment this time. When Marcus reached the entrance, the bouncers stepped aside, acknowledging him with a respectful nod. The doors opened, and the room fell silent. Inside, guests who had gathered for the reopening looked toward the entrance, their eyes wide with surprise. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Marcus, the man who had once been rejected, was now standing at the center of it all, confident, poised, and completely at ease. A murmur of awe spread through the crowd. Some recognized him immediately, others didn't know the full story, but everyone knew something powerful was happening. As Marcus walked into the club, he was greeted with respect and admiration. The once closed doors were now wide open, not just for him, but for everyone who had ever faced rejection. The club that had once symbolized discrimination and exclusion now stood as a symbol of triumph, resilience, and victory over adversity. In that moment, Marcus didn't just own the club, he owned the message that came with it. This was more than a personal achievement. This was proof that no matter how hard life tried to knock you down, the power to rise above it was always within you. The moment was electric, not just for Marcus, but for everyone in the room who had ever felt less than, who had ever been told they weren't good enough. This night was their night too. As the night drew to a close and the last guests filed out of the club, Marcus found himself standing alone on the balcony. The bright city lights below reflected his inner peace, the quiet hum of success surrounding him. He had done it. He had turned his dream into reality. But as he gazed at the club, now bustling with life and energy, he realized that the journey wasn't just about ownership. It was about something deeper. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, letting the weight of everything he had accomplished wash over him. It wasn't the money, the power, or the respect that mattered most to him. It was the message he had sent to the world. He thought back to that moment, years ago, when he had been turned away at the door. He remembered the sting of rejection, the feeling that he was being judged by something that had nothing to do with his abilities or character. That moment had pushed him to prove something, not to the world, but to himself. He had proved that no one, no matter who they were or where they came from, could be defined by the color of their skin. Through hard work, perseverance, and an unshakable belief in himself, Marcus had broken down the barriers that stood in his way. As he stood there, taking it all in, Marcus smiled to himself. His success wasn't just a victory over the system. It was a victory for everyone who had ever faced discrimination. It was proof that with enough determination, you could turn rejection into triumph. The club was more than just a business to him now. It was a symbol that dreams could be achieved, that barriers could be broken, and that no matter the obstacles in your way, you could fight for what you truly deserved. As the night ended and Marcus walked away from the balcony, he knew his journey was far from over. He had conquered one battle, but there would always be more. He had proven to himself and to the world that no one could stand in his way. And that was just the beginning.